So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Tasha Brown, and I'm within Meditation's community manager. And I want to welcome you to within Meditation's June teacher conversation, where we will be exploring our monthly theme of wise action. And it's a timely theme, given all that's going on in the US, in our world, when it comes to politics, social systems, conflict going on around the world, and also the ongoing challenges we all have with the pandemic. And I'm joined today by three of Within's teachers, Devon Pipars, Herky Chopra, and Karen Broutvaien. I hope I said that right, Karen. And you can let us know when you introduce yourself how to say it correctly if I didn't. And they'll all be sharing their thoughts on this theme with us and with each other. And to begin, I'd like to start with introducing Devon, who's been teaching with Within for many years. And Devon, I'd love for you to just take it over and tell us a little bit about yourself and your personal and professional meditative journey.
Wow. Okay. So thank you so much. My name's Devon, and originally I'm from Canada. Transplant to America, married an American. I've been meditating since 2002. So this is my 20th year of personal practice. Spent 4 consecutive years in India under the guidance of a master teacher there. So that was 2013 to 2017, and then came back in 2017 and got married and found myself in a new country and starting from scratch, really, again. Another incarnation within this one, and started teaching at that time. So meditation is my passion. It's my purpose. It's my calling. It's what I love to do personally each and every day, what I love to talk about and read about and think about and practice with others. So just really joyful to be here and be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And I'd love to hear from Herky. If you could share the same, let us know about your journey with meditation, both personally and professionally.
Good evening. So I am originally from India. I had a deep meditative upbringing growing up in India with exposure to a lot of ancient wisdom teachings and the guidance of an enlightened master. I moved to the US at the age of 20, and I went the corporate route, got my MBA, went into project management, and meditation was somewhere in the background. When 13 years ago, when I was going to have my second child, I was going through a very difficult phase, and I brought back to what I had learned passively to actively, made it an active practice. Combined, I do have exposure to different types of techniques, including mindfulness, devotional practices, and several other spiritual methods. And I made it a very active part of my life, not only on the cushion, but in my daily life. I'm also a single mom with 3 children and a dog. And I practice mindfulness and meditation daily. And I also teach at Within. I also teach at my workplace to my team and others around.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, this is so exciting to be here. So I'm so honored. So I'm originally from Argentina, but I moved to the States when I was almost 13. And boy, do I wish that I had this practice then, because that was quite stressful. But I began my meditation practice around 10 years ago, informally, really. I was going through a divorce, and I started practicing yoga, where there was a little bit of meditation, usually at the end, guided meditation. And then at the same time, I had started teaching at a private elementary school here in LA. And my head of school was pretty much an innovator in bringing mindfulness meditation into an educational setting. So I first started practicing, and then I really became interested and curious about it. So I did some trainings with mindful schools and began teaching at the school. And then during the pandemic, I did a year-long training at UCLA that was really transforming and incredible. And I would say that aside from formal practice, mindfulness practice every day, I really practice mindfulness, particularly in my speech. And that's part of what I'll talk about today a little bit. But it's been quite a stressful couple years, and this practice has been a lifeline for me. So I feel very honored to be able to share that within students and with my little students at my school where I teach. And very soon, I'm also in grad school to become a social worker. And I just started my first internship, and I'm working at an agency, an adoption agency. So I'm soon going to be bringing the practice to families that are going through the process of adoption. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, great. I mean, it's just exciting to me to hear the range of experiences and backgrounds you all come in with. And I'm sure it's going to make for such a rich conversation. And with that said, I'd like to ask Devon to start us off. We will have a chance for all of you that are live to send in your questions and get them answered. You can send them directly to me, and I'll either ask you to unmute if you're comfortable and ask your question directly, or I can ask it for you. So when you send it to me, just let me know which way you'd like to go. But before we open it up to those questions, and also questions that came in before we all came together, I'd just like to ask the teachers, and Devon, maybe you can start us off, to share any opening thoughts or teachings you have around this theme, what you thought of when we came up with this theme of wise action. What first came to you? And Devon, I'll
Thank you. I found it very, it was a deep rabbit hole, actually, for me, because I realized that the wisdom is not a point that you really arrive at. The wisdom is something that is always continuing to grow and evolve as you change, as you age. What was wise to me when I was 10 is not the same as when I was 20, is not the same as when I was 30, is not the same now that I'm in my 40s. And I think that that's true for a human being as a person, but also I can say that that's true as a practitioner as well, that understanding of wisdom and what it means to me is continuously evolving and sort of growing to expand ever more. So I guess, when I was sitting with it, I was thinking, well, I suppose the simplest way I could define it in this moment, which is the only one, right, that we have, would be an action that is aligned authentically with myself, that does no harm to anybody else. So it's something that is authentic and aligned for me. So that's my own sense of innate wisdom. But it's also something that is respectful and compassionate for others. So it's something really that I think reflects, to me, that's what wisdom is someone who is not just considering themselves as an individual that is selfish, self-absorbed, or shut off from others, but someone who is recognizing the impact of their thoughts, words, and actions on others as well. So to me, that was kind of the jumping off point for wisdom, noticing how that measuring stick of what is wise has changed throughout my life as a person, but also throughout my practice as a meditator. And I think that the wisdom of myself as a person and the wisdom of myself as a meditator have not always been in alignment, if that makes sense. And maybe we can talk more about that later. But I kind of feel like the practice is starting to inform more of my person as I go deeper and deeper into the practice. The principles, the yogic principles that are guiding and informing, not just the knowledge that we study as yogis, but the principles that we then exhibit in our lives. I find that to be just more and more integral to who I am. So yeah, so that's a very general answer, but that's where I'm starting from. Yeah.
Herky or Karen, any responses, and also adding in your initial thoughts around this topic?
Yeah, pretty much what Devon said, and like for me too, it's integrating what I practice in the meditation to my daily life, bringing in those components of presence, awareness, mindfulness, compassion, and cultivating that in our daily life, in my interaction with people at work, people at home, and also it's deliberate, thoughtful, non-reactionary, just bringing that instead of being impulsive. I also thought of karma yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, in ancient Indian scriptures, there are like 4 paths to liberation that are mentioned. And out of those, one is Raja Yoga, the meditative path. And then there's Bhakti Yoga, the devotional path. There is Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, which, you arrive at who you are eventually through knowledge. Wisdom, it's not just textbook knowledge, intrinsic wisdom. And then karma yoga is the path of selfless action, wherein you are going about your daily life without attaching to the fruit of that action, meaning you're not attached to the outcome of what happens, so such that your work itself becomes meditation. And whether that work is office work or cleaning the dishwasher or taking care of an aged parent or a child, or taking the dog out for a walk, everything around that becomes such that you remove the ego and just become that work itself, such that you merge into that. So it's for a householder, that's a very effective path. And of course, you can use it in combination with the others. But that is what I initially thought of.
And I mean, just to add to what's already been said so well, what I add, I think wisdom is recognizing that less is more. And especially when it comes to really to everything. But just for this conversation, when it comes to speech, that oftentimes we feel the need to fill space with words and with sound. And sometimes that's not necessarily the wise choice. And it's really about deeply listening and really learning to receive whatever it is that we're listening to or that we're seeing. And so again, it's really being compassionate and in the moment and intentional in how we are and how we interact with loved ones, with the world, with the community. Yeah.
And to just bring in a question that we've had from a student actually before we all came together, how do you see what we do at Within and meditative practices that we have personally and in Sangha? How do those inform these wise actions that you've all been talking about? How do they help us get to wise action? And anybody who would like to begin.
I mean, personally, it's the dissolving of the ego has been so helpful. The sense of individual self in meditation through the practice over many years has been extremely informative and transformative for me as well, because it's like, when you lose that sense of personalization, of individuation, then you start to feel that you start to recognize a truth that is all pervasive, that there is just oneness there on the level of awareness and existence. And when I close my eyes and I tune into that space, and you're closing your eyes and you're in that space, we're perceiving the same awareness and the same existence. And when you touch that space in yourself, you are not only understanding the true essence of yourself, but you're touching the true essence of every other being. So it's like you understand yourself better, more truly, more purely, in a simple kind of way that doesn't require words, like Karen was saying, a space that is permeated by silence and stillness. And like, that's our first language for all of us. And so, before we're taught that we're from a certain country, or how to form certain words, or how to have certain thoughts or conditioning, we are one in that space in the womb. And so like returning to that originality and dissolving that sense of separation has been so informative, because prior to that understanding, I was just operating out of what was best for me as a person. A sense of competition, a sense of comparison, a sense of judgment, a sense of, a sense of scarcity, that this is a scary world and we're all competing for resources. And I think that that limited perspective, it creates a lot of the chaos that we see in the world around us. This sense of brutality and war and oppression and control, and the struggle that comes from not understanding that oneness is real, and that it's here now and accessible if we take the time to check. So for me, it's like, coming back to the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, like, be the change that you want to see in the world. Why did he not say, do the change, make the change, enforce the change, be the change? If I want to change this world, if I want to change my reality, including my own perception of myself, which becomes the lens through which I perceive the world, I have to be that change. I have to discover myself as the peace, the love, the oneness that does exist in each and every one of us, before I can act wisely, and through my words and my actions, before I can start to bring that out into the rest of the world through my interactions. So that would be my answer. Yeah.
And I would add, for the student asking, like, for the within, how when they come, I feel like when they come and do the practice, one is setting up that discipline to sit for a practice and sit 30 minutes, interaction with the community, and also watching the breath, the presence that they learn, and also the body, tuning into their body, discovering who they are. All these are factors. You're building up the muscle, strengthening the muscle to put all these into practice. Those are solidified 30 minutes that you come and sit, and then you carry it. The aim is not to, like, it doesn't shut down there. You carry it forward in your daily living.
Yeah, and I think to add to what's already been said, I think there's an innate power in community, and going back to that oneness that Devon was talking about. And there's something very powerful when even if we do it like this in little squares on our computer screen, I think there's something very powerful in connecting when you're practicing with others, and especially at the end of class when people get to reflect and share and ask questions. I mean, that's how we learn, right? And that's where we get to practice that wisdom that I was talking about earlier of listening. And even as a teacher, sometimes it's a very humbling experience when we have the honor of teaching, to remember, at least this is something that I practice all the time, to remember that less is more, and that silence is what we're really trying to get to. Yeah. There's a question.
And Lisa, go ahead if you'd like to ask your question out loud. You can unmute.
Okay, so anyone who's been in sessions with me, like Danielle's heard me ask this, I think one of the hardest things for me is like, how do you maintain your own peace or peace in the world, knowing, like, as I'm walking down this incredibly beautiful street and the blue sky, that there's somebody in another part of the world that is suffering so hugely, or like you guys all are helping people so much, and so that's probably a big help to your peace of mind. But how do you reconcile, or for instance, some of the decisions being made lately that affect everybody in our future? How do you remain at peace?
That's such a powerful question. Thank you for asking it. So relevant. And my answer would be, I don't on the level of my mind, but I don't expect to on the level of my mind, on the level of my heart, on the level of my emotions, on the level of my body. I expect the changing field to be changing. I expect it to be up one moment and down the next. I expect losses and gains. I expect good days and bad. I expect hopes and fears, because that is the level of the reality of duality, which we're all living in. As long as my eyes are open, that will be my experience. And that'll be true even, in my observable functioning, in my mind, in my emotions, in my body. There will always be changes. And so I don't look for the peace to be present on that level. I don't expect this to stabilize in a way that isn't natural to its function. I know where the peace lies, and it lies within me, as me, but on a level that is deeper than the mind, deeper than the body, deeper than the emotions, on the level of aware existence that is permeating the mind and the body and the emotions, and allowing them to know and experience and feel and perceive and interact, right? That aware existence is permeating my whole self and everything else around me, right? So everything is within this field of aware existence, and everything is essentially an extension of me. And I also remind myself on the level of Devon's mind that I am looking through a lens that is limited, that I am not looking through the eyes of the infinite or the supreme or the absolute, or whatever we want to call that word. I don't see the whole picture. I can't understand with my limited perception what is playing out and why, and what might be the lesson or the challenge or the revelation or the blessing that is being received even through suffering. I can't know that for another soul or another being. And so part of me, I have to humble myself and say, I don't know what the purpose of this is in this moment. And also I have to dig deeper into my faith and into my trust and say, but I do know that there is something bigger than me, because I've sat in it, in its lap, and been held and absorbed into that is divine, that is not human and not Devon, but that is divine. And from that perspective, nothing wrong is happening. Nothing is happening on that level. And this is a radical statement to make as a meditator, right? But I've had that experience of the non-happening happening, the anahota hota, and where I'm sitting in my own meditation, and I'm witnessing the play of that seems so real in Devon's mind, or in her emotions, or in her body, physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, but the space from which I'm witnessing it is absolutely pure and untouched. It never becomes pain just because it's aware of pain. So there is a space that within each and every one of us that is always pure and free, that is never corrupted, never compromised, absolutely indestructible. And I think that is what saved me. Because to tell you the truth, Lisa, like, I was destroyed before I started meditating. I was so hurt. I was such an empath that everywhere I looked, I saw people, animals, and the environment suffering. And I was just sobbing all the time, just wanting to save everyone, just wanting no one to hurt. And I was hurting because I was feeling it all in my body. And I just thought, this is agony. Like, why are we even here to watch this play out? This is cruel, right? Until I realized that actually the answer is not out there. And I'm looking in the wrong direction. And what I seek, I am, but I have to turn my attention inward. And then once I could be that change, it changed my perspective of what is happening in the world and made me see it differently, with more compassion and with more humility, without a sense of like such strong judgment or condemnation in a way that I would have found myself before. I'm on this side, I'm on this side. Now I'm still aware of these preferences. I know if you were to ask me privately what my preferences are and which side I'm on, I could tell you. But on the level of the meditator, there's room for all of it. There's room for both halves. There's room, there will always be that realm of duality, and it is what it is. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thanks.
Either of the other teachers have any response?
Devon covered a lot of it, but yes, same thing, bearing witness to it, observing it, holding space for myself too, having self-compassion, almost like a child who's hurting. It's my mind and my heart will hurt too, seeing a lot of things. But then also knowing and holding that space and just bearing witness to what's going on. And just being a meditator does not make you passive, whether it's social causes or for the earth or for whatever, just does not, seeking peace does not mean that I just tune into my meditation and ignore the world. It can definitely bring about change in your own way to what is true to you, and in whatever way you can shift. Again, we're talking of karma yoga being that selfless action in the world. It definitely doesn't promote inaction. You can have the action. The whole battle of Mahabharata, if you're familiar with Indian ancient text, was a battle between two cousins warring, where there was a lot of injustice involved. And the Lord Krishna, who's an avatar, guides Arjuna, the warrior, on how it is his duty to bring about justice in the kingdom, and how he shouldn't, because he was also about to give up his weapons. And he says, that's after all my family on the other side, and I'm not going to fight. And how he walks him through that, what knowledge does, what patience does. Patience soothes the heart, knowledge calms the mind, justice calms the soul, and how he walks him through what it is his duty in the world. And yet you need to maintain equanimity within to before you go about, because are all our actions, whether they're charitable or social, are they coming from a place of anger or frustration or just impulse, or are they coming from a place of equanimity over seeing what is right and going with that?
Thank
I'll add just a couple of words to what's already been said. And I think that our practice is a vessel where we have an opportunity to turn inward. And I think when there's so much strife and so much suffering and so many atrocities and so much harshness going on in the world, I think oftentimes aversion is an easy way to, or an automatic way, I shouldn't say easy, but for a lot of us, we're defaulted to kind of just turn on the shutters and not look outward, because it is so painful and it is so hard to see. And so when we turn inward and we practice that self-compassion, I think it's a really good holding space, not necessarily to make it better, but at least just to be aware of what's there. And I'm a big proponent, I know anyone that's ever taken my class, and really connecting our emotions to our body and really paying attention to the information that our body is giving us, especially through stress and especially through stress or anxiety. And so when we begin to make that connection, to the physical body, we can then begin to make the connection that we, as Devon was saying earlier, that we are a part of that oneness, and that we are a part of everything that is. And so practicing self-compassion through it, I think is really important.
Thanks.
Can we go back to a really important point that Herky made, I think, is that, because it's, you know, our topic is wise action. And I love that she pointed out, like, meditation doesn't mean you're passive. You know, it's such a common misconception that because we're meditators, we're hiding, or that maybe meditation is aversion, right? Some people might think that we're just like going to la la land and just shutting out the world. But I would challenge the opposite. I would say that it actually takes great courage and bravery to turn within and sit with everything you see, no matter how it looks or feels. I think it takes a warrior spirit to turn within and accept your heart and your mind and your body the way that it is in that moment, and show yourself compassion, like Karen's saying. And then from that wisdom, meaning like just acceptance, not liking or disliking, but just allowing yourself to be in your experience, that's true wisdom. You're learning without judgment, without preconceived notions. From that, you can learn the best ways to take care of yourself, to love yourself, but also the best action to take for you, right? And it might not look like someone else's action. And I think that it's really important to state that we're not, you know, we're not just sitting on our cushions, like hiding in our houses, that the meditators are very compassionate, empathic, like aware, and in fact, very connected, not robotic, but very connected, sensitive beings who are aware of the play, you know, that's going on around us, with the highs and the lows of that play called life. And we do take action, absolutely. But I think that the key, like what Herky was pointing to in that scripture, what I love about that scripture is, again, when I know myself as an extension of that one being that is all of us, the same I that we're all referencing when we say I, you know, that same me in each and every one of us, that's common. And when we realize that we are just part of that one, and we've eradicated that egoic sense, then we become truly just an expression of love and action. We can become an expression, we can live our dharma, our true path, our purpose, without the sense of me and mine, the sense of owning the results, or having it to go a certain way, but just really playing your role appropriately from moment to moment. And the moment will reveal what needs to be done. And sometimes I think that wise action is kind of like a child's mind some ways. Like a sage is a little bit like a child's mind, in that the sage doesn't have to plan or preconceive what is said. The sage knows what's appropriate in the moment to speak. And I think that when you really know yourself and trust yourself, you start to move in the world in that way, with that same level of wise awareness infusing the thoughts and the words and the actions. And you can take the action or not take it. And both is valid depending on the moment. So, yeah.
And I just quickly want to add to what you're saying, Devon, and really what Herky was talking about earlier, that she just came back from retreat. I think that there is that preconceived notion that that you retreat to silence because it's a comfortable space, when the reality is, for any of us that have ever been on a silent retreat, it can be a really tumultuous place to be, where suddenly we're faced with truth that perhaps we've been looking away from. And so sitting in silence, as Devon was saying, is incredibly courageous, but yet such a powerful teacher of who we are and how we are that I in connection to the world. So.
And just to piggyback on what you're all speaking about already, with meditation being actually active, not passive, can you talk about how wise action, how it can be wise to not act as well? Like how it's not always action. There can be a choice where it's wise to, I think you were saying, one of you were saying earlier, to just be listening, to not be speaking, or to, maybe there's a different example where you're not taking an action because that's actually more wise. Can you speak to that?
So if it's okay, I'll jump in. Along my training, along the way, one of my teachers whom I adore from UCLA, Diana Winston, very early on in the program, she taught us a practice called STOP. It's an acronym, and I often do it and lead it in my classes. But it's an acronym that stands for STOP, take a breath, observe, and proceed. And I have found it to be such a powerful acronym, not so much when I'm sitting practicing, but really when I'm out in the world, right? That I don't necessarily need to speak right now. I don't necessarily need to take action right now, but I just need to stop. I need to breathe. I need to take in what's going on. And in that third step of observing what's going on is where I can really listen and learn how I want to proceed and figure out how I want to proceed. And that's something that obviously we do, those of us that have practiced this numerous times throughout the day. But it can be a really helpful practice in response to what Tasha was asking.
And I think it could be similar to when anger arises, to having that pause and not taking action, watching the anger bubble up, or different emotions, to not have reaction or action, merely be observant of that.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. Just those moments when, what am I contributing to this moment? Do I have something actually to offer, or through my contribution, would I just be perpetuating an energy that is divisive, that is causing pain? Am I maybe choosing the wisdom of silence and just or stillness in a moment when everyone else is urging action and yelling? That's a really powerful choice to again anchor in your own body, in your own nervous system, that neutrality that allows you to see clearly. And I think it's underestimated. I think it really is that clear seeing, giving yourself the pause, like Karen said, the stop, the possibility to observe before you act is so essential. And I think as meditators, it's what helps us, right? As meditators, the ability to respond versus react. Not to just be just a live wire that's just triggered by everything, but see the reaction arising in you, have a little bit of space between you and what you're aware of, and maybe choose differently if it serves your highest version of yourself and your highest purpose more correctly. There's a question here from Dora about, how I've made a weird comment, that's right, about Devon the person and Devon the meditator not always being at the same level. I can talk about that briefly. Yeah, like I've noticed like an evolution of, past versions of myself where I would be very self-centered, meaning like I would like this to work out the way that it works out, so because it's going to be best for Devon, right? And what I realize now is that sometimes even the things that happen that are not good for me as a person are ultimately the best for everyone, including me as a person. I often don't get what I want, but I always get what I need, if that makes sense. And so I'm learning how to let go of my own personal sense of it should be like this, or my expectations, my sense of agenda, my sense of if I do this, this, and this, then this will be the outcome. And I'm more open to saying, well, I'm going to still joyfully throw my seeds, but I'm not responsible for whether or not the seeds take root. All I can do is throw them. And we'll see what happens. You know, they may implant, they may not. And it's like, that's not up to me. That's grace or whatever, you know, but it's like, can I sort of, it's a sort of a humbling, it's like less pushing for the success of the person, thinking that that was going to make me happy. And honestly seeing that actually, even when the person that I am gets, say, maybe personally disappointed in a moment, that's actually a win for another version of me, you know, for someone who is me, an extension of me in a different form. It's like, that's totally fine. Like my failure is someone else's success, but their success is my success from the perspective of the meditator. Like I'm sharing the experience with all other living beings. There's no separation in between us anymore. So it's like, I want everyone to win, even if Devon is not winning, if that makes sense. It's an esoteric sort of thing, but yeah, trying to explain it.
Yeah, and like Devon was saying, removing the outcome from it. When practiced, at first it might seem almost unfair. You know, we are taught you get these grades, you get into this college, you do well at job, you get promoted. And for someone who's not familiar, may even question, what do you mean I don't expect, you know, have no expectation? I keep slogging and I get nothing, and the person next to me moves up the ladder. But there is, when practiced and understood deeply, there is tremendous freedom. So much freedom in your day-to-day, in the work you do, because every day you go to work putting in your full effort and whatever type of work you do, and you are so liberated already that it really doesn't matter. You know, I did a talk recently in New York for a school. I'm glad that they were having this ancient wisdom for younger generations, and they had speakers from different you know, ancient texts talking about bringing in their teachings. And the kids were asking, so they were in their junior and senior year, as we are applying for colleges and giving our SAT, do you mean we don't have this expectation? We don't have a vision board of this college? And I'm like, you can go about doing what you want to do, but you are putting in complete action. You are putting in all your effort, your dedication, but you're surrendering to the final outcome. So it leaves you free. There is no, you know, you can just live in joy. You can just enjoy whatever that brings. And you know, and again, it's hard to explain to children on an esoteric level, but even on a basic level, just when you practice it, it's a lot of freedom in it.
Jumping back a little bit, we did have a question about coming away from the mindfulness practices we have when we sit. Karen, you already offered a practice that we can do in our daily lives outside of meditation of stop. And so I was wondering if maybe Herky or Devon has another practice similar to that where we can really have a means of tapping into that wise action while we're going about our daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think that something that I didn't realize not everyone was in touch with is their intuition. So I've had some opportunities to sort of discuss or reveal or help people getting back in touch with the sense of what does an embodied yes feel like and what does an embodied no feel like for you. You know, I feel like that's really essential that each and every one of us as living creatures starts to recognize that. Sometimes that gets obscured with all of the shoulds or the conditioning or, you know, looking around and thinking, well, what would my best friend do? No. Like, what's it feel like in your body in this moment? Is it a yes or is it a no? And so just like turning again inward for those answers, not outward, but just starting to feel like, what does an embodied no feel like? Like, remember, it can be something really simple, like when someone asked you if you wanted to do something, an activity that you absolutely knew you didn't want to do because it was something you really didn't like, what did that feel like in your body? when you said that no? Or when someone asked you if you wanted to go out for your favorite kind of food, what did that yes feel like in your body? And just think about how that actually resonates for you, how it shows up sensually in your body, and let that be sort of a compass for you in your life, So that would be one of my tips.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's being acutely aware from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. Life can get busy. I understand. I'm also a mom with 3 kids. I have a full-time work, and I do the meditation. But as soon as I wake up, I don't jump to my cell phone, or I have to, take out that time to have those few minutes of reflection, few minutes of contemplation, meditation, yoga. And then being very flexible to how that looks like. Because when my children were small, there was obviously they had to wake up when I was trying to meditate. And I could not have this, I became, in a way, they gave me so much practice to detach from how anything should look like, removing the shoulds of how it is, practicing awareness and acceptance moment by moment to how it is showing up. And being conscious of, for example, mindful of the way I'm eating. And again, sometimes you are in a meeting and then you're, having limited time for lunch, but whatever time you do have, honoring the food that's going in your body, movement, nourishment. I guess in the end, it may turn out to be, earlier it was like for weight loss, you want to do this, or for you want to achieve certain outcomes, but all that strips away and you're doing it for consciousness. You're just doing it because it just feels the right thing to do. Like there's no overthinking it. You're nourishing your body because that is the thing to do. You're moving it because that is what you want to do. You don't want the cell phone in the morning just because I don't want to. I don't have to. I'm not even craving it. It sort of becomes automatic as you go deeper into the practice, and then being okay with whatever shows up, moment to moment. So yeah, and then but in the morning and in the night, I do practice. I do try to have that sacred time, and I also try to have. I have a place, and I feel like it becomes easier when you have a little area of your own, whether it's a tiny corner or a room. Just a regular space that you go, it just helps to just sit in. And again, sometimes it doesn't look like that. Then I'm just waiting at the bus stop on the grass and just sitting there, So yeah.
I just want to jump in. I'm just so inspired by everything that I'm hearing that I just remembered. One of the things that I've learned as a teacher, and I think those of us that have kids or those of us that supervise other people, there's so much that we can learn from our students, whether it's literally your students or your children or people that perhaps work for you. And I feel that I'm very lucky. I recognize how lucky I am that I get to teach this practice to young children. But one of the things that I've learned through the years of doing this is the importance of recognizing what an emotion feels like in the body physically. So back to what Devon was saying, and that embodiment, in the case of Devon, she was saying, what does a yes or a no feel like? But I'll add a little bit to that, in that, what does being angry feel like in my body, right? Recognizing the signals. Like I know when I'm stressed, when I'm anxious, I grind my teeth. And so it's learning to recognize that, so that, that's my body's telling me I'm feeling stress. And then perhaps I can connect it to what it is that I'm stressing about. But it's, I think, recognizing that embodiment of how our bodies and our emotions are connected is really the first step to, number one, of recognition, and number two, perhaps it's a building block to that wise action that we've been talking about.
Wonderful. And I'd like to just ask each one of you in the last few minutes we have to maybe give your final thoughts and also share with the group when you teach at Within. If I think possibly all the people here right now know when all of you teach, but we'll have other students that will be watching the video. So any final thoughts you have and when you regularly teach at Within? And maybe Devon, go ahead.
Okay, I have no final thoughts. The thought that came into my head is I'd be super curious to hear from the people if they want to, from the people who are attending here live. If you all have anything you want to say about wise action, I'd love to hear your perspective too. So that was my final thought. I teach Tuesday night from 7 to 7:30 Pacific time, and Thursday night from, come on, Dev, 7 to 7:30, and then 7:30 to 8 p.m. Pacific, and then Fridays from noon to 12:30 Pacific. Yeah.
Same. I would love to hear what anyone has to add to the conversation. Right now I'm teaching on Saturday mornings from 8:30 to 9 Pacific Standard Time.
Sorry, my connection is saying unstable. I hope you can still hear me. So I teach on Sundays at 9:15 Pacific, and on Mondays, I used to teach on Wednesdays. It'll shift from July 11th to Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And I guess in the end, I would also like to know, and wise action could mean different for different people. There is really no right or wrong. It's just a journey of discovering what is true for ourselves, and we're all on that journey.
Yeah, I'll share. I think I'm probably just recycling, but this is such a special space, and just feel really happy learning from all of you. For me, yeah, I'd say, actually probably has already been said, but yeah, just pretty much thinking before you do something, and with that intention that, yeah, coming from a place of compassion and love. So just, yeah, try not to hurt anyone, but also I learned from meditation, you gotta also put yourself first a little bit. Again, be selfless. Yeah, so I guess trying best to just care for everyone while caring for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny.
I can go next. So for me, at this moment, I started meditating a year and a half. And right now I'm trying to bring everything that I learned and all the techniques and tools to my daily life. And I must say that wise action, if I call it, everything that I'm learning and turning within and then applying that on my daily life, it's been very painful, super painful. I know it's a process, but it's touching like all my pillars, family, friends, the way I see myself in the world. And it's been really painful for me right now. But I know it's a process, but yeah, very difficult, even if I know it's the way to do it.
We're here for you, Dora. And if you ever need any extra support, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me, I really appreciate hearing each of your approaches, because there is so much hard stuff in the world, but I know everyone is experiencing it in different ways. So the challenge to figure out how to acknowledge it, but remain productive and do our best to put out what will improve the overall essence of the world, I guess. I mean, it's definitely very challenging for me. I think being an empath is not a gift.
I hear you.
But I mean, I think most people are to a certain, not everyone, but I think most people are to a certain extent. And it's just, I really appreciate how each of you approach it. And I'm going to keep that in mind. I mean, I definitely keep in mind the things I hear in meditation, and they help me a lot in a lot of situations. So this is like another understanding of it. So thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. And I just wanted to say in response to what you shared, Dora, that I have found and I've seen from other people that it's very common for it to be really difficult, especially at the beginning, and the beginning can be several years, actually, more than just even 1 year.
That's right. That's right.
Because we're looking inwards, at least for me, I remember I was looking inwards for the first time and seeing all these things I'd never seen before. So your experience is a common one. I would just say, know that you're not alone in that kind of experience. And I just want to thank all of you for this wonderful conversation, so rich and interesting, and so lovely to hear your very different and similar perspectives. Before we leave each other, I would just like to mention to the teachers and to the students that we have some upcoming events in July that will be coming out in our newsletter. But just to give you a little information ahead of time, we have a new theme next July, or this July. It's going to be forgiveness. And it's kind of going along with the fact that we have Global Forgiveness Day coming up on July 7th, where Desiree, one of Within's teachers, will be doing an Instagram Live. So that's exciting. We don't have the time yet, but you'll see that coming in through the newsletter. And then we also have, as we have many other months, we have an in-person opportunity to meditate together at the Tint Gallery on July 10th. And then we will be having another one of these teacher conversations on forgiveness. And that date and time is to be determined, but it's looking like it's going to be towards the end of July. So keep those all in the back of your mind and take a look at the newsletter for those details once they come out. And Karen, I will make sure you get the newsletter. I see your note there. And just really grateful for all of your presence. Thank you so much to the teachers for sharing your insights and wisdom. And thank you to the students too for sharing your insights and wisdom. Just as Karen said, we all learn from each other. And until next time, so grateful for you all here. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Grateful for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.